Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News on India's Voice of the World. I am Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour, EU leaders head into high-stakes summit for Ukraine on Thursday. EU budget chief sees a deal on 50 billion euros. Hungary blocks both the start of the EU membership talks and aid. Netanyahu vows to continue the offensive until victory is achieved, despite international pressures. US, Britain impose more sanctions on Hamas officials.
We are continuing until the end, until victory, until Hamas is annihilated.
Home Ministry sets up committee to probe Parliament security breach, accused booked under Anti-Terror Law Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And in sports, in Khelo India Para Games 2023, Haryana tops the medal table with 31 golds. Women's Football League Under-17 match today. European Union heads of state are set to meet in Brussels for a showdown summit on the bloc's future support for Ukraine. Hungary has threatened to veto new aid money and block the start of membership talks with Kyiv, leading to frantic negotiations among the EU members. Alex Cadier gets us the details from Brussels.
EU leaders will meet here on Thursday in the hope of signing off more than $50 billion of aid for Ukraine. The 27 heads of state will also discuss starting long-awaited accession talks with Kyiv, a process that would put the country firmly on a path to membership. 26 member states support both measures. One doesn't. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has threatened to veto the proposals, saying Ukraine is too corrupt and simply not ready to join the European Union. The Hungarian leader also said that Ukraine's vast agricultural sector could threaten the EU's common agricultural policy and eventually hurt European farmers. Despite attempts by European leaders to convince Hungary to lift its objections, Budapest still won't budge. French President Emmanuel Macron even invited his Hungarian counterpart for dinner at the Élysée Palace in Paris to try and change his position. One thing that could convince Hungary is money. A year ago, the European Commission froze more than $23 billion in EU funds for Hungary over concerns about democratic and rule of law backsliding under the Orban administration. On Wednesday, the European Commission unblocked nearly half of that money. Budapest says this isn't enough and that all the money should be unfrozen before it considers lifting its veto. As the leaders head to Brussels, breaking that deadlock and unlocking more support for Ukraine will be the top priority. Alex Cadier in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
As we told you, that 26 out of 27 EU countries continue their support for Ukraine in the fight against Russia and will back EU's enlargement to include Ukraine.
Pays sont déterminés à soutenir l'Ukraine.
Our two countries are determined to support Ukraine for as long as necessary in military, economic, humanitarian and diplomatic terms, because our collective security and respect for an international order based on law and our shared values are at stake.
Demain sont déterminantes.
We want this enlargement to be effective. We need internal reform of the procedure itself, adjustment and decision-making procedures within the framework of the European Union.
I think that the choice of the Ukrainian people is very important, and you all know that Ukrainian people want to be the part of the EU. Ultimately, as it stands for Montenegro, it stands for Ukraine as well. It is ultimately a merit-based, reform-oriented process that we are, as the country, as Montenegro, committed to, and I truly believe this is what all the other candidate countries are committed to.
Reacting on Hungarian stand, Ukrainian president said that Prime Minister Viktor Orban had no reason to block Ukraine's EU membership.
He has no any reasons to block Ukrainian membership in EU.
Volodymyr Zelensky is on a visit to Norway for talks with Nordic countries' leaders on more help to Ukraine. He also said that battlefield operations were always slowing in winter. At a joint news conference with Nordic leaders following meetings in Oslo, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that her government will present a new support package for Ukraine worth €1 billion to Parliament on Thursday.
My government will present a new military donation package to the Danish Parliament. The package will be of almost €1 billion. If approved, it will include some of the things that Ukraine needs right now, like ammunition, tanks, drones, and other equipment important for the ongoing fight.
European Union and Western Balkan leaders posed for a family photo as they gathered in Brussels for a summit that is focused on the EU's enlargement and mutual cooperation with the region. While addressing the media, the EU president said that the new enlargement plan aims to explore the untapped potential of the Western Balkans. North Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro and Bosnia and Herzegovina are all potential candidates to join the bloc. Croatia was the last country to be the EU member in 2013, but the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict brought enlargement back to the top of the agenda.
If you look at the Western Balkan economies, they stand today at around 35% of the EU average. In other words, there's a lot of untapped potential. And this is what the new growth plan is looking at. There was a lot of praise for the new growth plan.
11 people, including 3 children, were injured in a drone attack in Ukraine's southern region of Odessa, emergency services said on Thursday, adding that the attack destroyed a car and damaged an industrial site with 11 buildings damaged. The exact location of the attack in the area is yet to be revealed. The emergency services' social media posts showed rescue workers climbing ladders to the upper floors of the buildings and moving debris on the ground. Governor of the Odessa region announced the death of a man who succumbed to injuries in the hospital. KESSTAR, Ukraine's largest mobile phone operator, began restoring voice and data services to some of its customers on Tuesday after being hit by a massive cyber attack. Olzeny Kamarov, KESSTAR's CEO, said that voice services were to be restored first and data shortly after that. The company offers mobile, internet and other mobile services to some 24 million private customers. He further said that this was probably the biggest cyber attack in the history of the world. The SBU, Ukraine's intelligence agency, has launched an inquiry into the attack, which it accuses of being perpetrated by Russian hackers. Hundreds of experts from dozens of institutions have been working to restore services to millions of customers, given the severity of the damage. All right, shifting focus to Israel-Hamas conflict now. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is beginning a 2-day visit to Israel as the U.S. steps up pressure on the country over its assault on Gaza. President Biden's top security official will hold talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over how to protect civilian casualties as well as hostages and humanitarian aid. It comes after President Biden said that Israel was starting to lose international support over what he described as indiscriminate bombing in Gaza. DD India's Kate Fisher has sent this report from Washington.
The White House is having to tread a really fine line here. They're trying to square those comments that President Biden made about this indiscriminate bombing. That's what he described it as well as saying that they do believe that Israel is trying to limit civilian casualties. But certainly Joe Biden's comments represent a real shift in tone from this steadfast support of Israel to something a little bit more nebulous. And it's amid these first notes of discord that Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, is heading to Israel for these meetings with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with President Isaac Herzog and the Israeli War Cabinet. And his message, the White House says, will be one of trying to work out the next phase of this military campaign and ensuring that it is more surgical and precise to reduce harm to civilians. So that really is the message from the US to Israel as Jake Sullivan heads there for these very important meetings. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
As Israel's counteroffensive continues in Gaza Strip, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared on Wednesday that his country would continue its war against Hamas in Gaza with or without international support. Moreover, the Israeli Prime Minister, in a radio message, also reiterated that nothing could stop his country from continuing the counter-offensives until it achieves victory against the militant group.
I want you to pass this along to the last of the soldiers. We are continuing until the end, until victory, until Hamas is annihilated. Let there be no doubt about this. This is important. It is a message I want to convey to each and every soldier over there. Nothing will stop us. We will go to the end, to the victory, no less than that.
Meanwhile, US and UK have stepped in with additional round of sanctions on more than a dozen Hamas fundraising officials. Both the countries, who initially showed strong support for Israel's counter-offensive against Hamas on Wednesday, imposed an additional round of sanctions on people in Turkey and elsewhere who are linked to the militant group. The sanctions target 8 officials who advance Hamas's agenda and interests abroad and help manage its finances. Israel has announced its worst combat losses on Wednesday as the troops were ambushed trying to rescue another group of soldiers who had attacked Hamas fighters. The country reported the death of 10 soldiers in the past 24 hours, including a full colonel commanding a forward base and a lieutenant colonel commanding a regiment. According to the military officials, a total of 114 soldiers had been killed since the beginning of Gaza ground operations. Russian President Vladimir Putin has withdrawn from public activities to prepare for an upcoming year-end press conference on Thursday. The event will field questions from the public and journalists amid Putin's announcement to run for a 5th term next March. Let's take a look at DD India's correspondent Dasha Chernisheva's report from Moscow.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin is preparing for the end-of-year press conference, Russians have sent over 1.5 million questions. The event that merges previously 2 separate events, President's press conference and televised call-in show, is expected to be a marathon of at least 3 hours. The Kremlin says Putin is choosing the questions himself and insists that foreign and Russian media will work at the event. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Putin will recap the year's results. The president is also expected to address some of the most pressing issues that include the special military operation in Ukraine, growing prices, devaluing national currency, problems related to housing and communal services, social support, healthcare and education. Russian lawmakers expect that the president will talk in detail about the tasks and trends that will define the country's further development and outline his vision for the future. In 2022, an almost annual press conference and call-in show were both cancelled. Dasha Chernyshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, in spite of Democrats emphasizing that they're yet to find any evidence of wrongdoing, the U.S. House of Representatives votes to open an impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden. Azerbaijan and Armenia trade prisoners of war at their border in an attempt to normalize their relations. New York is all decked up in festive fervor as the New York stores display elaborate window decorations focusing on craftsmanship and surprise visitors.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's continue getting you more international updates. The U.S. House of Representatives voted to officially open an impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden as Republicans united behind the effort, even as Democrats said that they are yet to find any evidence of wrongdoing. The Republican-led House voted 221 to 212 in a party-line vote to open the investigation. The vote comes hours after Hunter Biden declined a closed-door call to testify. The White House has dismissed the investigation as factless and politically motivated. Biden gears up for a potential rematch with his Republican opponent Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Trump, who is the first U.S. president ever impeached twice, calls the investigations politically motivated.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
After more than 2 months of courtroom bursts, testimony concluded on Wednesday in U.S. former President Donald Trump's $250 million civil fraud trial in New York. However, a verdict is at least a month away. The lawsuit by the New York Attorney General seeks to fine Trump at least $250 million and sharply curtail his ability to do business in New York, that is home to several of his iconic properties. Trump has, however, denied wrongdoing and called the case a scam. In a step towards normalizing their relations, Azerbaijan and Armenia traded prisoners of war at their border on Wednesday. The exchange involved the release by Azerbaijan of 32 Armenians. In return, Armenia handed over 2 Azerbaijani soldiers held since April 2023. The South Caucasus neighbors have fought 2 wars in the past 30 years over Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenia and Azerbaijan were both part of the Soviet Union, which collapsed in 1991. With Taiwan's 2024 presidential election approaching, young and old voters are grappling with choosing parties that vary in their stance towards China as the prospect of forced unification looms. Some elderly veterans have anti-communist tattoos on their skin, reflecting past conflicts with China. While the defeated Republic of China government fled to Taiwan more than 7 decades ago, no peace treaty to end the war was ever signed with the People's Republic of China. Over the past 4 years, China has ramped up its military pressure against the island. Those tensions are dominating campaigning in the run-up to Taiwan's January 13th presidential and parliamentary elections. COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber of the UAE describes a climate deal approved by almost 200 countries on Wednesday as a historic package of measures. The next report tells you more on this.
After 2 weeks of hard-fought negotiations, the COP28 Climate Summit approved a deal that would, for the first time, push nations to transition away from fossil fuels to avert the worst effects of climate change on Wednesday. Representatives from nearly 200 countries agreed to begin reducing global consumption of fossil fuels to avert the worst impacts of climate change at the summit.
Through the nights and the early hours of the morning, we worked collectively for consensus. The presidency listened, engaged, and guided. I promised I would roll up my sleeves, and I promised I would be with you every step of the way.
COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber called the deal historic.
It is so decided. Enhanced, balanced, but make no mistake, historic package to accelerate climate action. It is the UAE consensus. The agreement is only as good as its implementation. We are what we do, not what we say. We must take the steps necessary to turn this agreement into tangible actions.
5 key measures that have been outlined to combat climate change in the deal. They are a just transition away from fossil fuels by 2050, prioritizing zero and low emission technologies like renewables and nuclear, phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, accelerating the phase down of coal power, and rapidly deploying clean transportation solutions. Saudi Arabia welcomed the deal, but repeated the oil producers' stance that tackling climate change was about reducing emission using all technologies.
On behalf of the Arab group, I also extend to you thanks and appreciation for your efforts, along with all party states, towards the success of the results of the first global stocktake and the success of its outcomes, which confirm the multiple paths and approaches that achieve the goal of limiting the temperature 1.5 degrees in line with the circumstances and priorities of each country in order to achieve the goals of sustainable development.
These measures aim to align with the temperature goals of the Paris Agreement and urgently address the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels and coal to mitigate climate change. These actions aim to significantly reduce emissions across energy systems and transportation, paving the way for a sustainable future. The proposal underscores the critical role of multilateralism and international cooperation in addressing global challenges, particularly in the context of the Paris Agreement's implementation. Anil Thomas's report for DD India.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said phase out of fossil fuels was needed to solve the issue of climate change. Reading the statement, United Nations spokesman Stefan Dujarric said that it is essential to come together for climate solutions.
The world cannot afford delays, indecision, or half measures. He said he remains confident that despite many differences, the world can unite and rise to the challenges of the climate crisis. Multilateralism remains humanity's best hope. It is essential to come together around real, practical, and meaningful climate solutions that match the scale of the climate crisis.
Ahead of the conclusion on Thursday, Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence Summit adopted New Delhi Declaration in which member states have vowed to work towards a global AI framework for inclusive adaptation.
India is hosting the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence Summit 2023. On day 2, Minister of State for Information Technology Rajiv Chandrasekhar announced the signing of the New Delhi Declaration of GPAI Summit to work towards a global framework for inclusive AI.
The Delhi Declaration deals with collaborations between like-minded countries to create applications out of AI that can help peoples of all the countries of the world, which is creating more and more applications in healthcare and agriculture, real-life cases. Second, to create a global governance framework that will make sure that AI that is available and that is deployed is always safe and trusted. And third, that AI is not exclusionary.
Echoing the sentiment, French Minister for Digital Transition stressed upon the role of AI in strengthening democracies.
We also want it to be an inclusive platform that is open to like-minded partners that share our vision of a human-centric AI and attachment to democracy.
On the sidelines of the summit, a global AI expo is organized at Bharat Mandapam. Leading AI enterprises and startups from India and the world are showcasing their innovations.
What we do is we use AI to determine the creditworthiness of small and medium businesses so that banks can get an idea of the risk to lending to the small and medium businesses also. And we are also responsible in our AI because a lot of lending happens to small and medium businesses and they are not able to repay back, right? So we are very cautious of that, and we make sure that there is no bias, whether it's regarding to race, whether it's gender.
We work mainly on robotics, and we do wearable sensors. So we work on the wearable sensors for motion capture and risk analysis. So I think we use AI technology, so it's quite important to be here in this summit.
GPAI is an international initiative to support responsible development and use of AI.
With the New Delhi Declaration, the GPAI Summit paves the way for a global framework on artificial intelligence, being mindful of its pros and cons, at the same time harnessing its limitless potential for greater public good. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, Shubhendu Ghosh in New Delhi for DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. New York stores are embracing the holiday season with elaborate window decorations, focusing on craftsmanship and surprise visitors. Saks and Dior collaborated on luxury display featuring landmark scenes from New York and Paris, while Bloomingdale's celebrated the release of Wonka with a chocolate fountain and trapeze movements. On December 13th, around 500 kayaks in central Copenhagen, adorned with Christmas lights, paraded along canals to celebrate St. Lucia, the traditional bearer of the lights. The event has been happening for around 10 years now. Canoeists wore a traditional Lucia crown of candles associated with the 3rd century saint's day. The Smithsonian National Gallery in Washington, D.C. has unveiled a portrait of Oprah Winfrey, painted by Chicago-based artist Sean Michael Warren. Winfrey, known for her talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, gained fame in 1986. Warren expressed gratitude for the opportunity to contribute to Winfrey's likeness to portraiture. The Royal Mint has launched a series of collectible 50-paisa coins featuring iconic dinosaurs, including the Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, and Diplodocus. The coins, designed by paleo artist Robert Nichols and Professor Paul Barrett of the Natural History Museum, offer accurate reconstruction of dinosaurs and their habitats. The Tales of the Earth series is available for purchase from the Royal Mint's website. Mexico City witnessed an annual procession of clowns dressed as a version of Guadalupe. The performers carried altars and images of Our Lady of Guadalupe on their way to the iconic basilica. The version of Guadalupe is the patron saint of Mexico and revered by millions of Roman Catholic faithful. Anthony Anderson, known for his roles in Blackish and Transformers, is set to host the 75th annual Primetime Emmys on January 15th. The ceremony was delayed due to Hollywood strikes in 2023. Anderson, who previously hosted We Are Family and starred in films like Kangaroo Jack and Transformers, is considered the natural fit for the role. The comedy drama American Fiction, directed by Jeffrey Wright, seeks to portray the humanness of its protagonist, Thelonious and his family, along with Issa Rae as Sintara and Golden, and Erica Alexander as Caroline. The film stars Tracy Ellis Ross and Sterling K. Brown. We're heading for a short break on DD India News Hour. But after the break, India and European Free Trade Association member countries make progress on an agreement on free trade. Two sides say never been closer to a pact. India at the United Nations stresses it is important for Global South to partake in shaping global decisions. And witness the beautiful migratory bird footfall in the northeastern Indian state of Assam due to the onset of winter season.
Embark on a timeless journey. Unravel the mysteries of a grandiose era. A treasure trove of royal and sacred complexes, temples, shrines, pillared halls, mandapas, rock-cut memorials, and more. A spectacular setting of rugged landscape and exemplary workmanship, representing the best of Dravidian architecture. Every
structure carved out as a unique artistic creation. A heritage landmark that reflects pure magnificence, integrated within its natural environment. An unexplored haven for nature and adventure enthusiasts. An imposing heritage reflected in its street bazaars and annual festivals of music and culture. Come, be mesmerized by the glorious capital of the Vijayanagar Empire.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. A quick relook at the top stories once again. EU leaders head into high-stakes summit for Ukraine on Thursday. EU budget chief sees a deal on 50 billion euros. Hungary blocks both the start of EU membership talks and aid. Netanyahu vows to continue the offensive until victory is achieved despite international pressures. US and Britain impose more sanctions on Hamas officials. Home Ministry sets up a committee to probe Parliament security breach. Accused booked under Anti-Terror Law, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And in sports, in Khelo India Para Games 2023, Haryana tops the medal table with 31 golds. Women's Football League Under-17 match today. India's Home Ministry has ordered an inquiry into Parliament's security breach. A committee has been set up under the Director General of the CRPF with members from other security agencies and experts. The committee will investigate the reasons for breach in security, identify lapses and recommend further action. All the accused have been booked under Anti-Terror Law, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act.
December 13 marks the 22nd anniversary of India's Parliament attack. And just as the parliamentarians were paying their tributes to the martyrs, another security breach was witnessed in India's lower house. The proceeding of Lok Sabha was halted briefly on Wednesday after two men entered, setting off a smoke canister inside the legislature. This man, wearing a black jacket, jumped from the visitors' gallery into the chamber. The visuals clearly show that they entered the aisles by evading security personnel. White and yellow-coloured smoke could be seen. Later, the Delhi police detained both the accused from inside and identified them. Speaker Om Birla told members that investigations had found that the smoke released by the men was ordinary smoke.
हम सबकी चिंता थी कि वह धुआं क्या था। वह अभी तक प्रारंभिक जांच में जो जांच की उसमें वह साधारण धुआं और सनसनी फैलने वाला धुआं था, इसलिए उस धुएं की कोई ऐसी चिंता का विषय नहीं, उसकी प्रारंभिक ठीक से जांच कर ली गई है.
The speaker assured lawmakers that the incident would be investigated and a report presented to the House.
प्रारंभिक जांच के अंदर जो प्रारंभिक जांच आए वो दोनों लोग पकड़ लिए गए हैं, उनकी सारी सामग्री को जब्त कर लिया गया है और जो दो लोग बाहर थे उनको भी गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया है.
Speaker of India's lower house also convened an all-party meeting on the security breach. It was on December 13 in 2001 that 5 terrorists entered Parliament House complex around 11:40 a.m. in an ambassador car fitted with a red light and a forged Home Ministry sticker on the car's windshield. As the car moved towards building gate number 12, one of the members of the Parliament House Watch and Ward staff became suspicious. He forced it to turn back, after which it hit the then Vice President's vehicle, and the terrorists got out and opened fire. By this time, an alarm was raised and all the building gates were promptly shut. A firefight ensued, lasting over 30 minutes. All 5 terrorists were killed, along with 8 security personnel and a gardener. At least 15 people were injured. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now we take a quick look at what is lined up on the 8th day of the winter session of Parliament today. Lok Sabha, that is the lower house of Parliament, will continue the discussion on the Post Office Bill 2023, following which Home Minister Amit Shah will introduce revised 3 bills to amend India's criminal laws for consideration and passage. Discussion on all the 3 bills will take place simultaneously. The bills will be introduced after making certain changes recommended by the Parliamentary Standing Committee. In Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house of Parliament, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will move the Appropriation Number 3 Bill 2023 and the Appropriation Number 4 Bill 2023 to return them to Lok Sabha after consideration. After this, Home Minister Amit Shah will introduce and in fact move the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Second Amendment Bill 2023 and the Government of Union Territories Amendment Bill 2023 for consideration and passage. After the passage of the bill, 33% reservation of women would be provided in the assemblies of Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. Lok Sabha has already passed both the bills. All right, to get us more on this, our correspondent Vikas Sarthi is joining us. Vikas, good morning. We've given a broad outline of the legislative agenda that is to be taken up in both the houses, but I would want you to explain in detail to us what are the criminal laws that will be taken up for consideration and passage today. We tell our viewers that Home Minister Amit Shah will introduce the 3 revised bills. Can we get more details on this, please?
Right, Preeti, these 3 bills had been referred to the Standing Committee of Home Ministry, where the members have given vital inputs to those previous drafts. Now we have these 3 bills with recommendation of Standing Committee as well, and a recommendation from other experts also have been accommodated while these 3 bills were being discussed among the members of the Standing Committee. Now, these 3 bills will replace the existing Indian Penal Code, CRPC and Indian Evidence Act. When these bills were introduced, Home Minister was of the opinion that the colonial bills were aimed at punishing people, punishing the offenders, but these 3 bills will ensure that justice should be done, not only the offender or the criminal be punished, but also it is ensured that victim gets proper justice. So the language, the outlook and the principles and theme of these 3 bills is completely different from the previous bills. Some legislations have been dropped, like Home Minister said that there were sections which had been introduced by the British Empire, or you can say the colonial empire, to meet their expectation, to fulfill their agenda. Those particular sections have been dropped, which have become irrelevant with the passage of the time. In fact, more than 15 hours have been allotted for discussion on these 3 bills, and we expect that the reply of Home Minister will be in next week, since tomorrow on Friday there is a private member bill in both the houses, and in fact Lok Sabha will also take private members bill.
All right.
Mr. will on discussion in next week.
All right, Vikas, also we tell our viewers that in Rajya Sabha, the Home Minister will move the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Amendment Bill and also the Government of Union Territories Amendment Bill 2023. Now, if passed, these bills will prove to be game changer because it will lead to 33% of reservation for women in Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry legislative assemblies, isn't it?
Right, Preeti, when 33% reservation was provided in all the assemblies, 2 states were clearly mentioned that for the Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry, government will bring a different bill at a later stage, and now these bills have been introduced. The Lok Sabha has already passed both the bills, and it will, once it is passed by the Rajya Sabha, we expect that as soon as these bills are passed by the Rajya Sabha, it will be given consent by President as well, and the bill will form. And the bill will become an amendment act. So by that act, Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly and Puducherry Assembly, both are union territories with the assemblies, will also get 33% reservation as being provided by the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam.
All right, Vikas, also a quick word on the fallout of the security breach that was seen yesterday. We tell our viewers that the Home Ministry has ordered an inquiry into the incident, and a committee has also been set up.
Right, Preeti. So we saw a number of meetings yesterday. Not only different agencies held a meeting within the premises of Parliament, but also there was an all-party meet which was headed by the Lok Sabha Speaker, and members have already raised their issues. Some members suggested that for the time being, the visitors' pass must be suspended unless the security audit is completed by the investigating agencies. As you just mentioned, that Home Ministry has set up a high-level inquiry and has in fact formed a committee. So this committee will give its recommendation. But later on, the Parliament is also looking at it from their angle also. So a table related to this security breach will also be provided to the members, that what exactly happened yesterday, how these two people managed to get inside the house, since it is at least 3 or 4 tier security arrangement, and apart from member of parliaments, no person even allowed to bring their mobiles inside the house. So how these two people managed to get these canisters, which are quite noticeable. So it seems that this whole episode needs a high-level investigation, which is still going on. Delhi police has already registered a FIR under UAPA Act, which is anti-terror law. So in coming days, we will be able to know what exactly happened, how did security breach took place despite multi-tier security in parliament premises.
All right, Vikas, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. So that was our correspondent Vikas Sarthi spelling out more and helping us understand the legislative business that is to be taken up in both the houses today. Let's continue getting you more international updates. The UN Global Refugee Forum is underway in Geneva. The largest international conference on refugee issues seeks to focus the international discussion on solutions rather than the crisis. Being held from 13th to 15th of December, it aims to focus a range of actors on finding solutions to the plight of refugees and to support the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees. During the forum, 32 UN organizations and 49 UN country teams will sign up to a UN Common Pledge 2.0, committing to support refugee hosting countries with the inclusion of refugees in national plans, budgets and service delivery systems. Meanwhile, intergovernmental negotiations on the Security Council reforms are underway in the UN, participating in which permanent representative of India to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that multilateral institutions rarely die, they simply fade into irrelevance.
Conversations on convergence and divergence alone can only lead us so far. As diplomats, we know that countries do not change positions unless in a negotiating mode where we create possibilities of real and meaningful exchanges. Let me remind all of you that the Summit of the Future, unlike the intergovernmental negotiations, is actually an intergovernmental negotiating process. We need to get real. India, as the world's largest democracy, will continue to strive for the voice of the Global South to be heard on the urgency of immediate action in this regard.
The tricolour of 70,000 square feet has now reached Delhi. Under the auspices of the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute, the national flag has been hoisted in many parts of India and the world as a first step. The 75 kilograms national flag has become the centre of attraction among people and has set a world record for the largest national flag in the country. Here's a report.
A team of Himalayan Mountaineering Institute conducted Mission Antarctica, unfurling a 7,500 square feet Indian national flag atop Mount Rannoch and the South Pole's Mount Vinson Peak, achieving a record in the Asia and India Book of Records. The final display in New Delhi marked the end of the Mera Yuva Bharat Yatra. Minister of State Ajay Bhatt praised the team's effort to promote adventure and patriotism among youth.
ये हमारी शान है तिरंगा,
Tricolor is our national pride. This initiative started from Sikkim 2 years ago continuously. From Antarctica, where the temperature is minus 35 degrees, after hoisting there and then hoisting this flag in various parts of the country, our Air Force School finally accomplishes this stage.
This campaign was launched in year 2021, led by Group Captain Joy Kishan and a team of 3 instructors. The team hoisted national flag of 7,500 square feet and 75 kilograms throughout the country.
7,500 feet symbolizes our 75 years of independence. That's why the size of this tricolor is kept at 7,500 square feet. And as we promised, wherever we have hoisted it, Lal Chowk, Srinagar, Statue of Unity in Gujarat, today we are in Delhi. Before this, we have unfurled it in Antarctica. The purpose is the same, to connect with every Indian.
The national flag set a world record by displaying the largest national flag of any country in Antarctica for the first time.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra traversed across different states in South India. The Information, Education and Communication van travelled through Anantapur district in Andhra Pradesh. A key aspect of the yatra is to facilitate direct interaction between the government and the beneficiaries by sharing personal stories and experiences of local masses, creating awareness about the central government schemes. With the onset of the winter season, the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary in northeastern Indian state of Assam is witnessing a surge in migratory bird footfall. The Wildlife Sanctuary authorities expect that this year more migratory bird species will arrive as compared to the last year. After flying thousands of miles from Europe, America and Africa, thousands of migratory birds have now arrived at the Wildlife Sanctuary. In the Indian state of Bihar, over 1,500 Buddhist monks, nuns and devotees from 15 countries marched for peace. The hills and forests of Gaya and Nalanda districts in Bihar were reverberated with chants of Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, which means surrender to the Buddha. The march was taken on the same route which was used by Gautam Buddha to travel to Sarnath near Varanasi, where he gave his first sermon. A short break ahead, but after the break, we get you sports and business updates. We tell you Fed leaves interest rates unchanged. Chief says historic tightening of monetary policy is likely over. Tesla recalls more than 2 million vehicles in the US over autopilot system to include additional controls and alerts to reinforce the responsibility of the drivers. Newcastle United bow out of Champions League campaign.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. India's Union, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held a meeting with the European Free Trade Association delegation led by Swiss State Secretary for Economic Affairs Helen Badleiger Artida and Norwegian Minister of Trade and Industry Jean-Christian Vesta here on Wednesday. The minister discussed the progress of free trade agreement negotiations with EFTA nations and explored avenues to further strengthen partnerships across key sectors. Earlier, the minister concluded a highly successful meeting with a delegation from the EFTA in July. The primary objective of these negotiations is to establish a fair, mutually beneficial and comprehensive trade deal between India and EFTA. On the sidelines of the World Investment Conference held in New Delhi, Jessica Taneja spoke with Susan Pulvera. She is the CEO of Ikea India about the Swedish firm's funding and expansion plans in India. Let's listen in.
We have with us Susan Purvarar. She is the India CEO and CSO for IKEA. Thank you for speaking to DD India, Susan. Tell us about the current operations and how you're planning to go big when it comes to the Indian market.
Yes, we have been here now 40 years doing purchasing and sourcing and 5 years of retail. So the first phase of our retail establishment is now behind us. We are taking the learnings and we are in a phase of planning for the next. India is a growth market and a very important market for IKEA.
Right, and IKEA has invested more than 10,500 crores in the past decade. Seems to us that India is an important market for the Swedish firm. But where do you see the problems when it comes to policy initiatives, or especially in your business when it comes to sourcing local items? How is that coming along?
I think we get a lot of support from the government in the forms of policy making. So, for example, the whole digitalization, the build-up of infrastructure, there are improvements on taxation that is really making ease of business, and that we have seen now over the past years when we have been operating. Then, of course, what we look for is reliability in the policy, so we know what's coming, and clarity and transparency, and that's very important so we can navigate, because sometimes we also need to look at the supply chain, and it takes time to change supply chain setups. But overall, I think very good dialogue with the government, and we work together, all partners that are connected to the business we do, and that's how you can move forward.
Right, and the operations in India do seem to come across as IKEA is doing pretty well. There's in Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. Do you plan to expand further, and what are your expansion initiatives, and what are your expansion programs when it comes to sort of taking your business ahead and covering more bases in India, because this kind of model would be sustainable, don't you think?
Yes. No, Delhi is of course the market we eye at now and plan for opening, and we have 2 big projects online, and we are looking at also further expansion. Then we look at also other places in India, and that is in the making. So too early to reveal any figures or exact, but Delhi,
we should
of
have
course,
an IKEA store in Delhi soon.
Absolutely, yeah, soon. It will take a little bit of time, but it's coming up in the first one in Gurgaon for sure.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average hit its first record closing high since January 2022. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq too ended sharply higher after the Fed signaled that its interest rate hiking policy of the last 2 years is at an end on Wednesday. The S&P 500 gained 1.37%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 1.38%. The Federal Reserve said it sees lower borrowing costs in 2024. Fed also left interest rates steady. Policy rate is projected to be lowered by the end of 2024. Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell in his press conference earlier said historic tightening of the monetary policy is likely over.
One of the things we're moving carefully about is that decision over, that assessment really over whether we've done enough, really. And you see that people are not writing down rate hikes. That's us thinking that we have done enough, but not feeling that really strongly, confidently, and not wanting to take the possibility of a rate hike off the table. Nonetheless, it's not the base case anymore, obviously, as it was, 60, 90 days ago.
Tesla is recalling over 2 million electric vehicles in the U.S. to install new safeguards for its Autopilot Advanced Driver Assistance System. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has raised concerns about potential misuse of the system. Tesla acknowledges that current controls may not be sufficient to prevent misuse, but disagrees with the regulator's analysis. The recall will include additional controls and alerts to reinforce the responsibility of the drivers. Let's talk of sports now. Around 1,400 top para-athletes from the country are competing at the maiden Khelo India Para Games 2023, which began in New Delhi on Sunday. On day 5, the athletes will fight in the final round of para powerlifting, para football, and in the group stages of para table tennis. So far, Haryana is topping the medal tally with 31 golds, 35 silvers, and 18 bronze medals. Uttar Pradesh is second on the medals tally with 23 golds, 17 silvers, and 9 bronze medals, followed by Tamil Nadu. The inaugural session of the Games will continue till December 17th. In soccer, Newcastle United's Champions League campaign ended in heartbreak as AC Milan came from behind to win and send them out of Europe. AC Milan substitute Samuel Chukwueze struck a superb late winner to seal a 2-1 victory over Newcastle United. Although Milan's joy was muted as PSG's one-each draw meant the French club were runners-up in the group with 8 points. Milan entered the Europa League with Newcastle. In fact, while Newcastle, who finished bottom with 5 points, are out of Europe, Dortmund topped the group with 11 points. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.